Hey everybody, Poppin' here. It's been a minute. I've been out of town, and then this happened. So, yeah, it's been a while since I recorded anything, but we're gonna go through the final match of the LCD Season 2. I made it to the finals against Goose. So we'll talk about the team, how it went, and then we'll watch the battle, and then I'll talk about a whole kind of season review. So, yeah, looking at it, we had my Golisopod as usual with tinted lens, Aquajet First Impression Leech Life knockoff with an Assault Vest. This was meant to take on Thunderous, because last time we played, I gave it Volt Absorb and it could take on Thunderous that way, but Goose got wise to that and started running Mold Breaker Thunderous every single week after that, so with a Assault Vest I can take a Thunderbolt, Life Orb Thunderbolt, hit it with a First Impression, hit it with an Aquajet and kill it off that way. Regenerator Landorus with U-Turn Earthquake, Stone Edge, and Knockoff to deal a lot of damage and pivot around. A Shell Smash Minior, usual stuff. Wandering Spirit Muck, which I thought was super cool. This was pretty much solely designed to stop his Muck from doing annoying things. So, Alamuck always has Regenerator. You send this in on Alamuck. If I lose my Black Sludge, that's fine because we'll swap abilities. I'll take the Regenerator, and then I'll get out of there with it. One sec, let me adjust this. And, wait a second. How's my brain working? Not so well, I guess. So that was the plan there. Infestation does hit on contact, so we'd swap abilities back, but that's fine because they're trapped, and then Alamuck has to hit me again, so we can flip it again that way. Toxic Haze and Pain Split to be annoying. Offensive Moltres because there's not much on his team that can take a Desolate Land Weather Ball. And the things that can, Muck and Primarina, get to it KO'd by Brave Bird most of the time. And then we have Dragon's Maw Dragapult mixed with just enough speed to outspeed Weavile. And Naive Nature lowers my special defense, which will come into play later. Protect and Disable here to see if Primarina is either Moonblast or if it's Triage, I get out of there after protecting. If it's Moonblast, I protect, disable it, and then I get on out of there. So that's the squad. Let's take a look at how the battle went. I played this last Saturday, I think, so almost a week ago. I was on vacation, so I could not record it like I normally do. So I start off the match. Oh, so first of all, this is the squad that I exactly predicted. Primarina, Muck, Mew, Thundy, Cofagrigus, and Weavile. So I started off with Moltres because it matches up into all these mons except for Primarina very well. And I see Mew come in. And I figure, okay, this is probably the Primarina coming in because even if it's really bulky Mew, I can still 2-hit KO it with Weather Ball in the Sun. So I expect the Primarina to come in here. And that's exactly what happens. Prim comes in, Primordial Sea comes up, that's good to know. It's not Triage. I get the U-turn out. Then I go into Golisopod, which I know with my Assault Vest, I can survive anything this thing wants to do and get some good damage off with a Leech Life. And then Cofagrigus comes in and absolutely tanks it. This thing is absolutely just shutting down my team again like it did the first time we played, and I didn't bring anything really to fight it off very well. The best I can do is either a Moltres Weather Ball or a Dragapult Draco. So TPD, let's see what happens here. Switch out to Moltres, expecting a Will-O-Wisp or something like that. Goes for Shadow Ball, gets a decent bit of chip, which is nice to see. And we have a switch into Alamuck, which takes a Weather Ball very, very easily. Here we see I start to switch out. I go into my own Muck with my my plan, Muck to counter Muck. So there we go. We got that. We get the knockoff. I lose my Black Sludge. No big deal. I switch abilities, and now I have the Regenerator, and I can steal that health and get out of here. He does knock off my Assault Vest on Golisopod, which is very unfortunate. Now this is no longer a Thunderous check and barely even a Primarina check. So from here, I believe I just go for a Leech Life, which is probably not what I should have done. I should have started throwing out a knockoff here or there to hit this thing and break off its leftovers. But we throw Leech Life, get a nice 18% heal up, and that does nothing because it starts healing back with leftovers. So our own Muck comes back in to tank whatever this thing wants to do. This is also a fully specially defensive Muck as a secondary counter to Primarina and Thunderous. Also just happens to pay off in blanking Cofagrigus. But so I go for an Infestation. Honestly here, I'm just looking for chip. I know I can't trap this thing. I'm just trying to get as much damage as possible on it. and I was expecting a switch there, to be honest, because the Toxic was pretty obvious. So I go for the Toxic this turn, and hits me with the Will-O-Wisp. So nice little trade there. My Muck has no physical attack, so this really just will slowly do the job of chipping me down. Just throwing off some damage here, and then I see the rest, and I realize this is pretty much the exact same Pythagoras that he brought the first time, with Shadow Ball in place of Hex, which they both have advantages, disadvantages, better against Moltres. So I see this, and I realize I do have a chance to get Moltres in here, and I pretty much... I knew that I could get some good damage off. I could either get a 2-hit KO on Muck now, because it took like exactly 33% from that first one. And anything else can't really take a Weather Ball except for Primarina, which is okay. But because I still have answers to Primarina in Muck mainly. I could have thrown out a Brave Bird, but I was in against Pythagoras, and I really needed to, if he was going to stay in and do some kind of sleep talk thing, I really wanted to be able to hit that and not flub it if he gave me the chance to do that. So I do go ahead and send in Muck here. It misses the Hydro, which is actually really big. I don't think I noticed that when we played. So then the Coffin comes back in, Moltres comes back in. We're right back to where we were. I think this time I actually read it and go for the Brave Bird, right? Yeah. Oh no, I go for the U-turn. I should have gone for a Brave Bird. But U-turn is just as fine. I come in here. I know that I am Scarfed, so I'm definitely faster than this thing 100% of the time. So I can get off a free... I think I go for a knockoff or a U-turn, huh? Yeah, I go for U-turn, predicting the switch. So I can get a Moltres, who is also Scarfed, so I know is also faster than Thundurus. So I see an opportunity, go for a U-turn, because I figured Muck's coming back in, and I go back to Landorus to keep him on the back foot. And I believe here, yeah, Pythagoras comes in. But I unfortunately... I got too big. My head got too big. I thought I'm gonna take the Muck down right now, but the immovable object comes back in and just eats up my Earthquake. So I try to go back into Moltres, and I believe it wakes up. No, it's still asleep. Sleep Talks gets a nice Will-O-Wisp off on my Moltres, but that's okay. We go for, I believe this is the Brave Bird, right? Yeah. Smacking 39% on Muck. Not as much as I would have liked. Unfortunately, it's not a 2-hit KO. I thought it was. He goes to Pursuit because I figured he would go for Pursuit there, because I've been caught so many times by Pursuit Month when I'm locked into a choice move. But I knew I just needed to get as much damage off on that Muck as possible, and it is within range of another Brave Bird now if it does come back in. But unfortunately, we do see Thundurus come back in. I had to throw out a Brave Bird because I know it'll kill anything else that comes in. What I should have done here is I should have sacked Meteor, honestly. Actually, that was wrong. That was on the switch. So, yes, I do switch out into Muck. I take the Hidden Power. I can tell that's Hidden Power Ice right away, because what other Hidden Power would a Thundurus have? And his Sleeping Pythagoras is the perfect answer to my Muck, but I go for Pain Split, get a bit back, and start to really feel the effects of that burn. My Muck is very quickly wandering down below 50%, and there's not much I can do to get my health back unless I manage to steal another Regenerator from his Muck. And unfortunately, I don't know if I wasn't thinking here, if I just thought I'd get lucky. I think I thought I was just going to get lucky on a Sleep Talk turn, but I miscounted, and this is the Wake Up turn. So I get slapped with a Shadow Ball and lose Moltres, which really sucks because Moltres is one of my two big win cons this week. It's Moltres, Dragapult mainly, because I know that Mew is going to be here with Unaware to stop anything with Minior. So until Mew goes down, and really until Mew and Pythagoras go down, Minior can't do anything. So send in Dragapult, try to get off a nice hit. I get a Draco off. It does kill the Muck, thankfully. And I reveal my Life Orb. Weavile comes in, and I go for the Protect to see what this thing's going to do, because I figure it's either going to Pursuit or Triple Axle. The fact that I didn't see Pursuit pretty much tells me that it doesn't have Pursuit. At least I don't think it did. So I felt pretty safe to switch out to Golisopod, who is a Weavile answer. I take the Triple Axle pretty handily. 5, 10, 20. That's not too bad at all for a mon as powerful as Weavile. I think that's Magic Guard Life Orb Weavile, by the way. So I do go in here, hit the first impression. This is something that I had to do. I would have died to a knockoff. So it's one of those things where I have to make kind of a mid-ground play. I go for the first impression. If he stays in Wee Wow, great, I get the kill. But if he gets in Cophagus, then he gets some health back, which really sucks. It's so hard having to dance around this thing. So we send back in Muck, do the old thing. I lose my Spadef, which actually ends up sucking, because I think now I'm in range of another one. Well, if I wasn't then, I definitely am in range of this thing. Go for a Pain Split, get a little tiny bit back, and then lose it right back to the burn. Again, showing how nice it would have been. Okay, so this is the key turn. So I switch back in Dragapult, because I think we'd seen in the past that this is not Life Orb. I think it's Specs, I think. So I come back in, assuming I could live the hidden power. I don't think I calced it, and I don't. And pretty much the second that happened, I knew I had lost this game. I didn't have anything else left that I can really break through Cophagus or Mew. But Mew comes back in. I know this is the beginning of the end, because this is definitely unaware Mew. I don't have anything left to deal with Cophagus. It absolutely blanks me, so we're going to speed up here a bit. And the rest of this game is me trying to pivot around this annoying-ass Mon, and ultimately not succeeded getting around it. So, as you can tell, I have lost this game. I thankfully do get a little bit of poison on the Thundurus, but now it's just a matter of... I send in Meteor here because I know this is my last shot. Maybe I need to get lucky and hope that Mew is not unaware, and maybe I can get lucky with a crit or two. I did have, I think, wait, what do I have here? It does say Stone Edge here, but I did change this out for Power Gem to do a little bit more damage to Cophagus, and I got KOs on these two, +2, even if it was not invested at all and with a bad nature. So I thought maybe I could do it, but here we go. Down to 1. Shell Smash up. We're good to go. We have all the hopes and cheers in the world behind this guy. I get the Power Gem. Takes out of that. Go for Acrobatics. Is 29%. How depressing is that? And then it kills me with a Scald. It's a crit too, which definitely mattered. Then we have this thing come back in, the Unstoppable Wall, and that's pretty much GG from there. I just figure I start spamming Leech Life, hoping for a crit. That I don't think ever comes, and even if it did come, it wouldn't do anything. I was hosed at this point. I had no way of getting past this Mon. If I could redo this matchup, I definitely would have prepped for Cophagus a bit better. But a big problem with my team was just I didn't have any dark types, and I mean the best way to deal with something like this is to just repeatedly assault it, and be that through like Dark Pulses, Shadow Balls, or Pursuit and Knockoff. That any of those options would have been better than what I ended up bringing against this thing. So yeah, that's the game. Goose played incredibly well. He definitely earned the Season 2 championship. You don't get there by luck, so it just goes to show how good of a player he is, and how well of a match and how well of a season he had. And just honestly a great team too. Super hard to prep for. Everything on his team was good. It's not a team where you can slack on anything. So that was the final. Let's take a look at some stats, because you know I love stats. So my final team, what I end up with? I end up with Dragapult, Landorus, Lele, Cobalion, Golisopod, Moltres, Snorlax, Steelix, Meteor, and Muck. You can see our little Pareto here of who came the most. Dragapult came to every game because it is pretty much the best or second best Mon in the format. So you do what you got to do. Snorlax came to almost every game except for 2. I kind of got bored of Snorlax by the end. I mean, I've used this thing the exact same way for 2 seasons now. Even with the exact same set, like 252 plus defense nature, like 132 HP to get an even poison heal number, and then the rest in either Spadef or attack. It's that simple. Golisopod and Moltres tied there at 6, and then we just kind of it's a nice little even distribution there. So if we look at the individual Mons, we have Dragapult, and I broke it out what items, moves, and abilities that brought the most. And I just kind of want to summarize each of them. So Dragapult, I definitely see why this thing is banned from the normal format. It's so good. It's so fast. I got to have the nice benefit of not having to prep against this thing this entire season, because I was the bastard who got it. So yeah, it makes things really easy when you have one of the best Mons, so that you don't have to prep against it. And Sheer Force Life Orb is honestly probably the best way to run this thing. I did a couple other things with Magic Guard, Dragon's Maw, Dazzling, and Adaptability, but I never really got more value out of it than I did when I ran it with Sheer Force. Sheer Force Life Orb is such a classic combo. When I did run Scarf, Band, Band was actually pretty good. I liked Banded. And then in terms of the moves I use most often, U-Turn, Dragon Darts. U-Turn's obviously like the best move in the game. Dragon Darts is so good. And the other stuff here is mainly just kind of Sheer Force coverage. We got Shadow Ball. I ran a Phantom Force 3 times, which I honestly don't think I did. I didn't think I had done that. And then just some other general coverage. Thunderbolt, Hydro here. I saw Brine down there for some reason. But I really like Dragapult. Nice, fast, offensive. It's with how good it is in Gen 8, it makes you kind of take for granted the lack of pursuit in the normal metagame. Because I have this Mon that has 142 base speed and can U-turn wherever it wants, and it can always move first, and I'm always safe to switch out. But then you come into a format that has pursuit back, and it's not so much the case because 88-75 defenses isn't that great. You'll die to a banded pursuit. You'll die to 2 pursuits. It really makes it a lot harder to play around. So I think one of my biggest gripes with this team was the fact that multiple times in the season I had forgotten that pursuit existed, and I ended up sacking mons to that because I've been playing in a game without pursuit for 4 years now. So yeah, Dragapult, awesome mon. We're going through the draft right now, and somebody I think picked it round 1. Pick one, which makes sense. Snorlax, click to add text. So Snorlax, I love Snorlax. This is my baby. This is like my signature mon of this league, pretty much. Poison Heal, Toxic Orb every single time. Protect, Facade, Darkest Lariat, and Curse. So, as a Snorlax connoisseur, I really think that Facade, Curse, and Darkest Lariat are pretty much mandatory. Even though I ran Protect 6 times, I really don't think I needed to run it that often. The only time you need Protect is on that first turn to guarantee the Toxic Orb proc, but there's lots and lots and lots of other times where you can do that. It is nice to have some extra chip recovery to get a nice 12.5% with Protect. Get on top of that, you can essentially heal up a quarter of your health every interaction, but it gives your opponent lots of times to switch around, lots of time to boost up on you and try to nullify your ability. So if I were to make the ideal Snorlax set, it would probably be Facade, Darkest Lariat, Curse. And you need Darkest Lariat, period, because the 2 games where I didn't bring I brought Darkest Lariat 4 times out of 7. And 2 of the times where, essentially I lost the first game to Goose because I didn't bring Darkest Lariat. And it's just so nice to have that coverage on Ghost types and when other things are setting up on you. And I would say, honestly, for the last move, you probably want to bring Toxic, honestly. Because it's tough, right? Snorlax loses in 2 ways. You get beaten down physically, or they can come in and stall you out. If they can get up enough, if they can nullify your attack boosts from Curse, or the match I played with the Jealous, it kept using, and the match I played with the Shiinotic, they kept using Strength Sap on me to lower my attack and heal themselves back up. And I don't think I had a Toxic either of those weeks. But if I had Toxic, it would have been so much easier. Just slap it on and watch them die. So the only downside is if you run the set of Toxic, Facade, Darkest Lariat, and Curse, you are absolute bait if you get trapped in and your ability stolen away. So that's why I do see the merit in Gastro Acid and Whirlwind, and also Block. But I would really say that Toxic is probably your best bet. Because it never actually even happened to me of getting trapped in and my ability stolen. I think I worried about it more than I needed to, and that ended up costing me a couple games. Because when I played Goose, I specifically dropped Darkest Lariat for block. Or, I think that's what I did. Actually, let me check. I think Goose was week 4. Oh yeah, I put it in for Whirlwind, because if something came in to block me, I could Whirlwind it away. But guess what? It doesn't matter, and I would have rather had a dark move to slap Pythagoras and could have actually won. But what do you do? So, I tell you what you do. You don't run fucking Whirlwind on Snorlax. That's a dumb move. Don't do that. Golisopod. I really like Golisopod. I picked it up, I think, week 2 or 3. I traded out, I think, Mudsdale for it. Usually ran Tinted Lens. That did a lot of work, but it has a good amount of versatility for other stuff. Magic Guard's great. Volt Absorb and Triage are also awesome. Triage is usually what they would prepare for because it's kind of hard to prep against a Tinted Lens one. You can't do anything defensively against Tinted Lens. You just need to out-offense it, which is kind of hard for a mon this bulky, especially when my main stab is Leech Life. But you can see here, Leech Life, Spikes, Knockoff, and then one priority move and then a filler. That's really all you need for this thing. I don't think you ever run Goliath Spot without Leech Life. You're just... you're either trying to get too artsy for art's sake, or you're have something wacky going on in your brain. Maybe you're facing something with Liquid Ooze. Maybe that's why you don't bring Leech Life. But I think Leech Life and Spikes are pretty much mandatory, unless you have an Assault Vest. Knockoff is also almost always mandatory, and then the others are just kind of filler. Band is obviously great. I would say Band is probably the best item for this mon. Heavy Duty Boots is fine, but I really think Band is where it's at. You want that extra damage. If you're running Triage, you need the power. If you're running Tinted Lens, you want all the power you can get, so why not run a Choice Band? And even if you're not running Tinted Lens, and they do have a way to resist your attacks, on a Triage set, running Spikes with Choice Band is a great option. Getting up a Spike on the switch is always nice, especially if they don't have many ways of getting rid of your hazards, right? And Spikes are obviously not Spikes are not a premium hazard like Stealth Rock is, where teams are built around it, and Mons have Heavy Duty Boots specifically to stop Stealth Rock. Things really don't care about Spikes. They're kind of overlooked, so being able to get a 12.5% on each switch is great, and especially if it's on a Mon that forces as many switches as things does. I think if you get up that Spike and then keep the train rolling, I think it can really do a lot more work. Ultimately, I use this thing more as just a Leech Life button, and I didn't really get too much use out of the Spikes, but actually, I didn't really get too much use out of hazards this entire season, to be honest, so I'm going to see if I can switch that up for next one, because I really liked having Smeargle in Season 1 and trying to litter the field with hazards all the time. Moltres. I love Moltres. I had this thing Season 1 too. Desolate Land is pretty much the best ability on this. Occasionally, Delta Stream or Volt Absorb are fine. Moltres is actually pretty good defensively if you can get rid of one of its weaknesses, so... You can see here I typically ran a defensive Moltres with Heavy Duty Boots or Leftovers. Leftovers when you can tell they're not going to bring rocks. And then with Desolate Land or Volt Absorb, you are an amazing wall, or Delta Stream, which you're kind of a suboptimal wall. I'd rather have one of the other two. And then for moves, U-turn for pivoting, Weather Ball, because most of the time you have a Desolate Land. And if you don't run Weather Ball, hey, bring Flamethrower, bring Overheat, something like that. I did bring Defog a bit. I don't think I clicked it once this season. And if you have Desolate Land, you bring Morning Sun, because why would you not do that? That's 66 free percent. I really, really like Moltres. It does a great job in a defensive role. A defensive role that can still push out a lot of damage, and it obviously does great when it's on that full-on hyper-offensive mode that I don't use very often. I used it in the finals this season, and I think I used it in my semifinals of last season with Primordial Sea and Hurricane to just do bird spam. But I like Moltres more as a defensive mon, but it definitely has capability to run more offensive sets. So I think Tay drafted Moltres for this season. So yeah, go nuke things with Moltres. Tapu Lele was actually awesome. I love Tapu Lele. I didn't think it was going to be as good as it was. I ran a bunch of different abilities on it. Speed Boost, Cheer Force, Bulletproof, and Adaptability. Almost always with a Life Orb or a Scarf, because this thing is really strong. If you can get the speed advantage, why not kill things harder? Or if you're not fast enough, run a Choice Scarf. Ugh, my hand's getting numb. In terms of moves, you got Psychic and Moonblast. Duh. That's what you're always going to bring on it. And then I had well, I'll talk about that set later, but I had a couple other things I was doing there. If it's Thunderbolt, Shadow Ball, Taunt, that's usually on the Sheer Force set, and that just deals a lot of damage to a lot of different stuff. Cobalion is a mon that I was actually somewhat underwhelmed by. I really wanted it as just a nice bulky pivot, super physically defensive. It doesn't take much from anything, but it does have a Steel is an awesome type, right? You got your Fairies resist. You got a Psychic resist, but Cobalion's fighting type neutralizes both of those. It also gets rid of your flying resist, so there was a lot of times where I wanted to bring Cobalion, and I just realized, oh shit, this just doesn't get the job done that I needed to. So I only ended up bringing it 4 times, and I only brought it ever in a kind of defensive capacity. Volt Switch always, Stealth Rock, Secret Sword are great, then a bunch of filler shit. I did bring it with Magnet Pull once to kill the Celesteela, which was cool, but then I went on to immediately die to the rest of the team because Calm Mind and Focus Blast is not so great in terms of, well, having mono fighting isn't the best kind of coverage, so yeah, that was that set. Most of the time, though, just typical Regenerator, AV, and Rocky Helmet stuff to kind of just tank hits, pivot around, and get my team in for better matchups. But this thing is fast enough to the point where it is kind of a pain to work around. Like, you can get a fast Volt Switch off, and then you're bringing in something else to die. I did also run Metal Burst, which I forgot is not reduced priority like Counter is. In my final set against on this team here, instead of Muck for the longest time, I had a Cobalion with Regenerator, Lagging Tail, Metal Burst, and some other wacky shit because I wanted to go slower than anything on his team and pretty much always kill it in one hit back with the Metal Burst, but I thought that was too stupid and too gimmicky. But I mean, Muck didn't work, so maybe, who knows, maybe that would have worked. But it wouldn't have stopped this monster either way. So that was Cobalion. Landorus was a late acquisition, but I brought it pretty much every week after that because it is the GOAT. It is such a good mon. Heavy duty boots, choice scarf, all you need. Regenerator, refrigerate, galvanize to do lots and lots of damage. Not too much diversity in terms of moveset. You turned knockoff for Earthquake every single time. That's such a great combo. And then for your fourth move, Toxic, Stone Edge, and Frustration. Frustration, obviously, in the weeks where we had refrigerate and galvanize. I actually don't think I ended up clicking Frustration any of those weeks, though. So those abilities were essentially useless. But the threat was, the possibility was there. I had the threat. I could have laid down the law if I needed to. But honestly, just turning around and Earthquake and got the job done. I really like Landorus. I wish I could have picked it up this season, but alas, that was not in the cards. Credilli is a mon that I had on the team for a bit, and then I dropped it. I brought it to 3 games, and I only really included it here because this was kind of cool. I never used the same move on Credilli twice. Toxic, Stealth Rock, Rock Blast, Recover, Meteor Beam, Leech Seed, Infestation, Giga Drain, Earthquake, Earth Power, Curse, and Ancient Power. Wowie, that's a lot of stuff. Grassy Surge once to stop a Psychic Terrain team because I didn't have a Dark type on my team. And then I burned the other times, once with Curse and once with Meteor Beam, with Power Herb and White Herb and Lefties for the Grassy Surge one. It was cool, not too good. I probably wouldn't draft it again in this format. It is really, really bulky, so if you want to pick up a good defensive grass type, I guess Credilli might be the one. But one of the problems that I had with it was that it doesn't resist ground, which is one of the main reasons why you want to get a grass type. So replacing Credilli and ultimately picking up Golisopod, I think, was probably a good move. We have a Rainbow of Meteors here, who I also picked up late. I just picked up Meteor because it's one of my favorite Pokemon from Gen 7, and I've never used it before, never had a chance to use it. And this is like the only format that is actually good. So I wanted it, and I got it. So Shell Smash, U-Turn, blah, 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 blah. This thing just does damage. It has no versatility to it. It's either Shell Smashing or just throwing out Rock Attacks and Acrobatics. So yeah, not too fancy, but I like it. It's cute. It's a good mon. You can choose lots of different colors to flex on your opponents. So that's all you really need. Rotom I had early on. I brought it, 3 times. It wasn't that great anytime. Primordial Seed, Magnet Pull, and Electric Surge. The Magnet Pull time was actually pretty cool. I brought that first week and trapped the Melmetal on turn 1. And then I burned it and then chipped it down. But yeah, this thing isn't so good when it doesn't have Levitate. And it's kind of underwhelming, honestly. But I'm sure there's ways to make use fit, but it didn't really fit what I wanted to do. Wasn't quite strong enough, wasn't quite bulky enough. So moving on, boring mon. Steelix I do love. Steelix is my favorite, one of my favorite Pokemon. So picking up Mega Steelix and then just never Mega Evolving it seemed to be the thing to do. I only run it twice with Regenerator, EQ Body Pressed, and then Dragon Tail, Roar, Ice Fang, and Stealth Rock. This was a great physical pivot. It did a good job in every week that it came, both of them. And it didn't see much play, but I mean, it does a great job at what it needs to do. I just invested full on HP and then special defense to help tank if it took a stray hit here or there, and then it just blanks everything on the physical side with a base 200 defense. And it switches in again, and it's just generally annoying. So I really liked Steelix. If we ever do another format where you have to draft a Mega, I think Steelix is one of the better ones to pick. And lastly, we have Muck. I had it from the start. It was a tier 5, and pretty good for a tier 5, honestly. Very bulky. Gets a decent amount of coverage, or like utility moves. Nowhere near as good as Alolan Muck, though. It's crazy. I thought they were pretty similar besides just the typing, but Alolan Muck gets so many moves that Muck just wishes it got. If this thing got knockoff, it would be like a whole tier up, but it doesn't. So here we are. And it doesn't even get corrosive gas because it's not in Sword and Shield. So sucks to suck, Muck. But Black Sludge, Wandering Spirit, Corrosion, Toxic all the time, and then just annoying baby shit. Last thing I have here, my most creative build of the season was the Tapu Lele. Tapu Redemption Arc, or alternatively named the best Tapu, ? This was my Speed Boost Tapu Lele. I brought it both times versus Steering. It was the exact same set each time. I just named it something different so he wouldn't know it was copy and pasted. Protect, Calm Mind, Draining Kiss, and Stored Powered. I really, really, really like the set. It's obviously shut down if you have an Unaware Dark type, but the cool thing is you can stack Stored Power, you can stack Calm Mind and Speed Boost boosts into Stored Power to do tons of damage, even if they have an Unaware Mon. And if they don't have an Unaware Mon, Draining Kiss gets you all that health back, keeps the offense rolling, and allows the boosts to keep stockpiling and building and building and building and building until this thing just gets absolutely out of control. So that was my favorite set of the entire season. Season 2 was awesome. It was a lot of fun. We're drafting Season 3 right now. I have 4 Mons, so we'll see how the team looks when it's done. I'll make a team review. But yeah, that's how LCD Season 2 finished on up. Lost in the finals to Goose, the champion of Season 2 with his Cathagrigus. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. Super fun league. Love the format. It's always a good time here. So yeah, that's the video. I will see you in the next one. Peace.